Hey folks, this is RedFalcon, and this is episode 1 of my Let's Play of Evochron Mercenary. And in this Let's Play / tutorial, I'm going to go over basic flight mechanics so you guys can get around. Now, just ignore this text for right now. I know there's a lot going on the screen right now, and I'll get to each element as we go along, so just bear with me. So, first thing you know, you're in a cockpit. And you can use the insert key to look left, and then the page up key to look right. You can also hit home to look up, and then end for a rear view of the ship. And if you hit the V key, it'll switch between different views. Like this is an external view of my ship. This is like a cinematic view of my ship. Another cinematic view, and then cockpit view. I'm just going to stick in cockpit view because that's the way I want to play. Now, before we do anything, let me show you some of this controls I changed. Now, I don't have a joystick, so I'll be using a mouse, and I'm using the control mode, mouse direction, reverse Y. Normally, with normal mouse control, if you move up, the ship goes down. You move the mouse back, the ship goes up like a joystick. I play a lot of first-person shooters, so my brain is hardwired to think if I push up on the mouse, the ship goes up. So I don't have a joystick, so I'm using that setting. You can use whatever you're comfortable with. But let's go over to configure controls. There's a few changes I made. Now, these are controls I use. They might not work for you. They might not make any sense to you, but they make sense to me, and I figured I'd show you what I changed. So one of the things I changed was for strafe up and strafe down, I changed it to the W and S key. And for the weapons, fire primary weapon, I just don't touch that right now, but fire secondary weapon, I changed that to middle mouse button. I'll show you that in a minute, why I changed that. Let's see, what else did I change on here? Let's see, what else did I change on? And there are a lot of controls, and you know, I'll get to those when the time comes. Let's see, where is divert power to shields? Somewhere around here. Jettison cargo. Here we go. Fire particle weapon, I changed that to my right mouse button, and I changed beam weapon to my left mouse button. I'll explain the reason for that later, but basically you don't have to change it like that, but it makes sense to me because beam weapons are used for bringing down shields, and they don't use as much energy. Particle weapons are used for taking down the hull. So I switched it like that. That made sense to me. Let's see. The rest of this stuff, I think it's pretty much I left it as default. And I think, let's see. Here we go. Boost energy to shields and weapons. The default key is like the left bracket and the right bracket. You'll probably want to change that to something that makes a little more sense to you. I have a 5-button mouse, so I've got those mounted to the 2 side buttons on my mouse, but you might want to change those to like left and right arrows. That seems logical to me. Another thing I did was there's a setting in here somewhere where you can change inertial thrust. I changed that to up and down arrows, and I'll explain that later. But now that you got the controls looked at, we'll go over basic flight mechanics. So I use the mouse to adjust your pitch and the yaw of the ship. And and if you hold down the Alt key, you'll get a mouse cursor. So I'm going to use this to point around at all the different things. So basically right now, the ship has 2 flight modes. It has and the flight modes are located right here. You can see what they are. IDS is inertial dampening system, and then if you hit spacebar, it switches it to inertial mode. And I'll explain the 2 modes in a minute. But while it's in IDS mode, the ship will perform like it would in an atmosphere. So, like, for example, the ship will automatically point the ship in the direction of the nose. And you can actually adjust the throttle with the number keys. So like 1 is like, I don't know, I think it's like 10% throttle, and it goes all the way up to 10. And backspace completely cuts the throttle. So this is very useful if you have to maneuver in a tight space. Excuse me. Or, you know, you want to slow your ship down. And you rotate the ship with the Q and E keys. And left, as I mentioned earlier, I changed S and D to vertical thrust. And if you look right here, this is my vertical velocity, this is my horizontal velocity. And it doesn't really do a lot when the IDS is engaged. So, anyway. Oh, another thing that's very important in this game. Your ship uses fuel, and your fuel gauge is located right here. If it gets below 100, you'll get a low fuel indicator. But fuel is used for accelerating, decelerating, and I believe you use a small amount of fuel when you use your FTL drive, but we'll get into that later. So, right now the ship is in IDS mode, so you know wherever I point the nose, that's where the ship's going to be going. Now, inertial mode, I switched over to inertial mode. What inertial mode does is it keeps the ship moving in whatever direction it was going in. So like, for example, I was moving in the opposite direction, and you can see that my ship's moving away from the station. And you can see that right here on the velocity. It's at negative 477. And if you look at my vertical and horizontal velocity, you'll see that I'm, you know, they're not zero. I'm actually like drifting off. And this is a very important skill to master. Now, I want to draw your attention to this little bracket right here. This is very important. That is a visual representation of your vertical and horizontal velocity. So what you can do is, like, let's say I'm going off in this direction. I'm pressing D to apply thrust to the right side of my ship, and you notice that square moves over. And you can actually use that to help get your ship back in, get your trajectory lined up with the nose of your ship. It's very useful for dogfighting and or even just blowing up asteroids, which we'll get into that later. But I also, you know, if you'll notice, let me switch into IDS mode. Your ship has like a maximum speed, but if you switch into inertial mode, if you keep, I'm pressing the up arrow now to increase my thrust. I can actually exceed that. Now, of course, you'll have to use fuel to slow down, because in space there's no friction, so you know you have to use your thrusters to slow down. And you can actually just switch it into IDS mode really quick, and you'll see that the ship's slowing down, just like that. But anyway, that's the two modes that the ship operates in. Let's see, what else? Oh, let's see. Your hull strength is located here and here, and your weapon energy is located here and also here. And these numbers here, the 0S and 0W, that's how much power you have dedicated to shields versus weapons. So I'm going to click the weapon key, and as you can see, I've got full power to weapons and then -5 to shields. So shields will take longer to charge, but yeah, let me get in a point where I can fire. See how fast the energy's charging back up? Now, if I were to go in the opposite of that, fire off, you'll see they take a lot longer to recharge. So that's something you're going to have to balance in dogfighting or just running missions. Okay, now that we've covered that, you pretty much have the basics of how flight works in this game. You also have an afterburner, and you hold the tab key. You'll expend fuel faster, but you can get to faster speeds. And if you have IDS engaged, you'll automatically start braking when you take your finger off the key. Now, if you switch it into inertial mode, hold it down. Let's get up to about 2K. You'll just keep drifting off into space. And if you get good enough, you can use your vertical and horizontal thrusters to actually get your ship lined up. But it takes some practice getting used to inertial flight. But once you get the hang of it, you'll save a lot of fuel this way. At least I've experienced that you save a lot of fuel. So let's try to dock with this station here. And as you notice, I'm starting to slow myself down as I get up. And you'll wanna line up with these green docking lights. When they're green, that means you're clear. And you'll just take your ship right in. Let's take a look around. Get to look at all the other ships. Let's throttle up a little bit. There you go. And then just drift right in. Now, if you had IDS engaged, like right now, you'll notice that we're still expending fuel. So you want to hit the backspace key and cut all that off. Now, we're docked to the station. There's a lot of stuff with the station menu. Right now, we're just going to focus on a couple things. This refuel, reload, CM's countermeasures. We're going to go ahead and just fill our tank. And our fuel is located right there. Now, I don't want to get too much detail with this. We do have... I will cover this in another tutorial. But for right now, we just want to fuel our ship. And you hit... If you hit F3, you hear the woman say that... the ship computers say that the docking tractor beam's disengaged. And what I like to do is... I just like to hit the afterburner. Get up to like 15 or so. Oh, IDS was on. Get up to like 10 or 1500 and just kind of drift out of the station. Alright, now let's go over the two main screens you're going to use in this game. If you hit F1, this brings up the navigation console. And we're represented by this, hold on, see if I can zoom in a little bit here. Okay, I can't. We're represented by, I believe, yeah, this little green spot right here. And the way the universe is broken up into, we have sectors. And then within those sectors are coordinates. So if you look right in here, this shows you like the coordinates. Now sector 00 is right here, and then there's coordinates within that. And then if I go up more, you see that SX0, SZ1 is a different sector, and the X and the Y change. So you can think of this as the sectors are cities, and then the coordinates within those are streets. If that makes any sense. It'll make a little more sense later, but trust me, this... Alright, so... and this grid is laid out X and Z, a 2D plane, but you can hit this button, rear view, and it'll flip it over so you can see the depth. So that's going to be useful. You can also set waypoints, and you can do those just by clicking anywhere. And this little yellow marker here is your nav beacon. And if you look right up here, this is the destination position. So you'll see this is in sector -1, 0, and it's at these coordinates within that sector. And you can only have one sector marked at a time, but if you go to click this button, add to log, you can actually add a description, like let's say test nav point, and then hit enter, and it shows up right here, and you can click on it and it'll set those coordinates. So if you click back on the nav map, like let's say I clicked over here on the station, if you go to map log, this has a list of all the coordinates that you saved. So double click on this one, and if you notice right here, that's the same nav point we had. And I don't know what the ping button does, honestly. I never looked that up, so if someone can tell me what the ping button does, that'd be very helpful. Oh, and this notification here is a distress call. And a lot of times, like for example this one, if we had 25 compressed food, we could go to this planet and make about 250,000 credits. But we're not going to worry about that right now. If you don't want to get distress call notifications, you can click this little button here, mute DC, and you'll get a notification saying that distress call alarms are muted. Now, you also have, you can zoom in with here, zoom out. Set location, you click this button, it'll put a nav point right where your ship's located. And, oh yeah, you can also use the mouse wheel to zoom in and out. And this shows you your reputation in the system. I forgot what the different grades were. I know it was good, fair, and hostile. I think there might be another grade below that. But basically, we're in good standing here, so most ships won't fire on us. You go to systems that are hostile, and pretty much everyone wants to kill you. Oh, that's a battleship. Hold on a second. Let me, there we go. There we go. Let me just adjust our heading here. We almost hit a battleship. But we can look at it as we drift away. That's why I like inertial drifting. You can just kind of look at whatever you want and travel in the same direction. You'll see why this is useful when we do some missions. Alright, so anyway, back to this. You can toggle between different kinds of text. Like this shows text on it. It kind of just shows everything, and it's a lot of information to take in. What you can do is you can go right below it. Oh yeah, if you click highlight, it'll toggle between two. But right below it, you can filter out different. Oh, what's going on here? Hold on a second. Caution. What am I? Oh, okay. That's weird. Okay, I got a collision notification. That's what the little caution symbol was right there. That's a collision notification. You do take collision damage in this game. But yeah, that's why it's always important to point your nose where your ship's heading, so you can see what you're about to hit. All right, so. Oh, who knew space was this busy? All right, so what you can do is you can cycle between the different. Lost my train of thought here. That's what happens when you almost hit a battleship. You can toggle between the different labels. So this is planets. This is stations. These are gates. You use gates to go between systems, and we'll get into that in another episode. And then objects, which are just objects floating in space, as far as I know, and of course all. And of course, probably the most important thing you're going to use this for is plotting your FTL, faster than light drive. Basically, like let's put a marker right there. Before we get into that, though, if you hit F2, it brings up your inventory console. And this is the equipment your ship currently has. The Fulcrum drive is your FTL drive. It allows you to travel greater than the speed of light. It's very similar to the FTL drive that's used in the Battlestar universe in the remake. You kind of just like... well, it doesn't look like it from your perspective, but you kind of disappear and you reappear somewhere else. Sort of. You'll see when we do it. This is your shield, of course. This is the equipment in your cargo bay. Right now we only have one cargo bay slot, and I believe that carries items up to a stack of 25. It might vary from item to item. Down here are your primary weapons, so as you can see we have one particle beam weapon equipped. And right here you'll get the item description if you mouse over it. And we also have 2 missiles on board. And this is our current fuel and the amount of money we have. Crew management, I'll get into that later. News console, this basically gives you information about the system you're currently in. It also shows you your reputation to all the different factions. It also shows you the market conditions for various items. And of course your pilot statistics. Call sign money, your rating, your rank. Excuse me. Military rank, all that stuff. And this is very important. This is the view last quest message. So remember that text that appeared in the beginning of the video that I told you to ignore? Well, if you click this button, it gives you the information from the last quest. And as you can say here, basically this is the start of the main quest. And it's telling us to go to, let's see, where's that information? Land at the main trade city on New Hope. So, of course, hangar details. You can rent hangars. And all that. You can jettison your cargo bay by clicking this button, or you can jettison individual cargo bay items by, I believe it's... the right or left clicking. I'll have to experiment. I forget. Honestly, when it comes to left and right clicking, it's something I just do. I don't think about it. So, and yeah, this switches between items for sale and available contracts, which I don't think that'll show up unless we're docked. But anyway, so let's see. Let's like. Oh, okay, I'm already past the asteroid field. Let's say I wanted to go back to, here, let's not put that right there. Let's put that right there. Like, let's say I wanted to, when you're locked onto something, you'll get an arrow pointing towards that object you're locked onto. But there's my nav point, and, you know, I could... fly, use fuel, and, you know, drift all the way back to it, or I could just hit my FTL drive. And for that, you just hit the F2 key. Once you have your coordinates locked in, you have a nav point. Now, we have the lowest grade Fulcrum drive available, and it has a very short range. Oh, and if you notice, we expended a lot of energy going through a jump. So what you'll want to do is, I've noticed that this helps. If you divert power to the weapons, your energy will recharge faster once you go through a jump. And where is that station? It's around here somewhere. Oh, yeah, I forgot. Very important. Your radar's right here. It's a 3-dimensional radar that shows you different objects. Down here below is the threat, the legend. So like green are friendlies, yellows are neutral, reds are high threat or hostile, and I can barely read that, but I know purple is jump gates. I believe that blue color is station and white are objects. So when you destroy a ship, there's a chance that they'll drop cargo that you can pick up and claim later. But I think that pretty much covers the basics of flight control. Let me know in the comments below if I missed anything or gave some misinformation, and I'll try to correct it with annotations. But this has been episode 1 of my Let's Play. If you enjoyed what you saw, or found any of it helpful or educational, or if you had a good time watching it, click the like button. I'd really appreciate it. And if you want to see more videos like this, please subscribe to my channel. And as always, thank you